Behind the gilded gates of Buckingham Palace, something extraordinary is happening. Sources close to the royal family claim that King Charles has signed a document that could fundamentally reshape the British monarchy as we know it. What is in this secret file, and why has the entire royal establishment been keeping it hidden from the public? The answer might surprise you. This is the story of a monarch grappling with mortality, health challenges, and the weight of the crown. This is the untold narrative of how the British throne might pass hands in a way never seen in almost 90 years. For centuries, the British monarchy has operated under the principle of continuity and unwavering duty. Monarchs rule until their dying breath. Abdication is not merely uncommon. It is taboo. It is the ultimate betrayal of the sacred oath taken upon coronation. Yet here we are in 2026, and everything is about to change. King Charles III, now 77 years old, is reportedly considering something that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. He is preparing to hand over the throne to his son, Prince William. And according to multiple palace insiders who have come forward with shocking revelations, this transition is far more advanced than the public has been led to believe. The journey to this moment began long before the current reports surfaced. When King Charles ascended to the throne in September 2022, following the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, he inherited not just a crown, but a legacy that stretched back more than 7 centuries of continuous monarchy. At that moment, he was 63 years old, seemingly vital and energetic. The future seemed clear. He would reign for perhaps 20 or 30 years, bringing stability and continuity to the institution, much as his mother had done through her unprecedented 70-year reign. But life has a way of changing carefully laid plans, of introducing unexpected variables into even the most carefully ordered lives. In early 2024, when King Charles was barely 2 years into his reign, Buckingham Palace announced that the monarch had been diagnosed with cancer. The specific type was not initially disclosed to the public, but the statement made it clear that the cancer had been discovered while undergoing treatment for benign prostate enlargement. The palace assured the public that the king remained in good health and would continue with his official duties without interruption. But there was an undercurrent of concern, a subtle acknowledgement that something significant had changed in the king's health status. However, what the public did not fully appreciate was the profound toll that ongoing cancer treatment would take on a man already in his mid-70s. The chemotherapy, the hospital visits, the constant medical monitoring, the side effects that come with such intensive treatment, these are not things a palace press office communicates to the world. Those closest to the king, those who saw him day after day, began to notice something different about him. Yes, he continued to fulfill his royal obligations with the discipline and dedication that had defined his entire adult life. Yes, he appeared at state functions, garden parties, and official ceremonies with practiced grace and apparent composure. But those who knew him best, those who had observed him for decades, observed a weariness that even his legendary sense of duty could not entirely mask, a certain heaviness in his movements, a slight pause before engagements where once there would have been immediate energy. A royal insider close to the palace, someone with direct and frequent access to the inner workings of Buckingham Palace, shared candid insights about the situation. The king is 77 years old and still being treated following his cancer diagnosis. He's attempting to maintain the pace of royal duties that has defined his entire life, but he is genuinely tired. Those are not the sensationalized words of the international press or tabloid gossip designed to sell newspapers. Those are the observations of someone with direct access to the royal household, someone who sees the king regularly and understands intimately the physical and emotional demands being placed upon him. Meanwhile, on the international stage, something was happening that would profoundly influence the king's thinking about his future and the legacy he wished to leave. In January 2023, Queen Margrethe II of Denmark, King Charles' distant cousin and a woman he had known and admired throughout his entire life, made a historic decision that shocked the world. At the age of 83, after reigning for more than 50 years with remarkable dignity and dedication to duty, she announced her abdication. She would step down from the throne and hand the Danish crown to her eldest son, who would become King Frederik VI. The transition was extraordinarily smooth, deeply dignified, and widely celebrated across Europe and around the world. Queen Margrethe did not wait until she was physically too frail to make the decision herself. She did not cling to power until the very end, allowing diminished capacity to determine the timing of change. Instead, she made a conscious, deliberate, and carefully considered choice, while she was still vital and energetic enough to ensure a completely seamless handover of power. She transferred control of the realm, while she remained capable of witnessing the success of that transition, of seeing her son settled into his role, of knowing that the institution she had served would continue to flourish. And King Charles was watching closely, paying careful attention to every detail of how the Danish monarchy handled this unprecedented transition. Royal observers and historians who follow the British monarchy carefully noted something significant in the months that followed Margrethe's decision. King Charles, who had admired his cousin Queen Margrethe for many decades and had followed her reign closely, began to speak differently about the question of succession and the future of the monarchy. He commended her decision to step back while she was still able to make that decision independently and with full command of her faculties. He recognized the wisdom in her choice. He understood that she had protected not just her own dignity and her family's well-being, but also the stability and integrity of the Danish crown itself. He saw that her departure had not weakened the Danish monarchy, but had actually strengthened it by ensuring a smooth transition to a new generation of leadership. The king began to soften noticeably on a topic that had been considered absolutely forbidden, virtually taboo in royal circles for nearly a century. Abdication, which had been treated as a constitutional crisis and a betrayal of duty, was no longer completely unthinkable. It was becoming perhaps a legitimate and even honorable option to consider in the proper circumstances, and with proper preparation. But where did the idea actually originate that King Charles might abdicate? According to palace sources, the impetus came from an unexpected direction. Prince William, the heir to the British throne and the man who would become king, began to raise the issue himself. Concerned about his father's health, worried about the grueling demands of the monarchy, and perhaps thinking strategically about his own future, William began to suggest to his father that abdication might be worth serious consideration. This was not a palace coup. This was not an act of disloyalty or presumption. Rather, it was a son expressing genuine care for his aging father, while also thinking about what might be best for the institution that both men were devoted to serving. It was in this atmosphere of quiet contemplation and private family discussions that the decision was made to prepare. Palace officials began drawing up contingency plans. These were not unusual in royal protocol. The truth is that the royal household has detailed plans for almost everything. Plans exist for state funerals. Plans exist for potential coronations. Plans exist for medical emergencies and sudden changes in circumstances. But what was different this time was the scope and seriousness of these abdication preparations. According to sources with access to palace discussions, the preparations have been extensive and detailed. They include practice runs for the Accession Council, the formal body that would officially receive notification of a new monarch. They include rehearsals for the public proclamation that would be made from St. James's Palace, announcing to the world that a new sovereign had ascended to the throne. And most significantly, they include preparations for the quiet handover ceremony where King Charles would sign the instrument of abdication, the legal document that would officially transfer the crown from one generation to the next. The instrument of abdication is not a casual document. It is one of the most historically significant pieces of paper in British constitutional history. The last time such a document was signed was in December 1936, when King Edward VIII renounced the throne to marry the American divorcee Wallis Simpson. That abdication shocked the nation and became one of the defining moments of the 20th century. For nearly 90 years afterward, no reigning British monarch has signed such a document. The institution has not had to seriously contemplate abdication as a legitimate option. But if the reports are accurate, that nearly 9-decade silence is about to be broken. King Charles has reportedly signed or is preparing to sign an instrument of abdication that would transfer the crown to Prince William. The very existence of this document represents a seismic shift in how the British monarchy thinks about succession and the obligations of the crown. It represents a rejection of the old model in which a monarch serves until death. It embraces instead a new model in which the needs of the institution and the health of the individual monarch are balanced against each other. It recognizes that sometimes the greatest service a king can perform is to step aside gracefully at the right moment, ensuring that the crown passes to someone younger and more capable of bearing its weight. According to palace insiders, there is no firm date currently set for when this transition might occur. This is still a contingency plan, still something being prepared behind closed doors rather than formally announced to the public. However, the very fact that these preparations are so advanced suggests that the timeline may be closer than most people realize. The scope of these preparations extends far beyond the document itself. Sources indicate that Prince William has been quietly building what one observer described as a trusted team for the inevitable transition. William and his wife Catherine, the Princess of Wales, have been carefully cultivating relationships and identifying who will play key roles in his future reign. Recent events have provided hints about these plans. In May 2026, William and Catherine hosted a significant garden party at Buckingham Palace. Among those invited were several family members whose presence was noted as particularly symbolic. Prince Edward and the Duchess of Edinburgh attended. Zara Tindall, William's cousin and a senior royal, was also there. These were not random invitees. According to palace sources analyzing the guest list, these individuals were being publicly associated with William in preparation for their future advisory roles in his reign. Zara Tindall, in particular, has reportedly been tipped as someone who will hold a major advisory position once William becomes king. Her presence at the garden party was widely interpreted by royal observers as a signal that she is part of William's inner circle for the future. Prince Edward is similarly expected to hold significant advisory responsibilities. The Duchess of Edinburgh, Sophie, is also being prepared for an enhanced role in the new reign. These are not ceremonial positions. These are substantive roles in the governing of the monarchy and the oversight of royal duties. The careful positioning of these individuals in the months leading up to the potential transition suggests that William's team has been thinking strategically about how to structure his reign for success. But why would King Charles even consider such a radical step? The answer lies partly in the demands of modern monarchy, and partly in the personal health situation facing the 77-year-old king. The British monarchy in the 21st century is not a ceremonial relic. It is an active institution that demands constant engagement, constant travel, and constant public appearances. King Charles has famously maintained an exhausting schedule. In recent months alone, he has returned from a tour of the United States and Bermuda. He has hosted multiple large-scale garden parties at Buckingham Palace. He attended Sir David Attenborough's 100th birthday tribute event. He presided over the state opening of Parliament. These are not light duties. They are physically demanding obligations that require stamina and energy. Observers who watched the king at the state opening of Parliament last week noted something telling. He appeared tired, not merely a little weary, as anyone might after a long day of official duties, but genuinely exhausted. The weight seemed to be visible on his shoulders. The question became inevitable. Can a 77-year-old man receiving ongoing cancer treatment realistically maintain this pace indefinitely? More importantly, should he be expected to? The royal insider who spoke about the king's condition put it bluntly. He is trying to keep up the pace, but he is tired. Those 5 words encapsulate the central dilemma. A man of extraordinary duty and dedication trying to continue serving an institution, even as his body signals that the burden is becoming too heavy. There is also a constitutional dimension to consider. The British monarchy is not merely a personal institution, it is a constitutional entity intertwined with the very fabric of governance in the United Kingdom. The health and vigor of the monarch matters not just for personal reasons, but for reasons of state. A diminished monarch can create uncertainty. Questions arise about the ability to function effectively. Concerns emerge about the stability of the institution. By stepping aside, while still capable of making a clear decision and ensuring a dignified transition, King Charles could actually strengthen the monarchy rather than weaken it. He would demonstrate that the institution is capable of evolving, of adapting to modern circumstances, and of placing the needs of the realm above the personal ambitions of any individual, even if that individual is the king himself. The financial disclosures released by the palace just days ago add another layer of context to this narrative. For the first time in British history, a reigning monarch publicly disclosed his personal tax bill. King Charles revealed that he had voluntarily paid more than £30 million, roughly $39.6 million, in taxes since ascending to the throne in 2022. The disclosure included his tax payments for the fiscal years 2023-24 and 2024-25. He paid £12.9 million in 2024-25 and £11.7 million in 2023-24. For the first time ever, details of Prince William's tax payments were also made public. William paid £7.76 million in 2024-25 and £8.34 million in 2023-24, bringing his total tax bill to more than £20 million since becoming Prince of Wales and inheriting the Duchy of Cornwall estate. Why did the palace release this information now? Officially, Buckingham Palace stated that these disclosures were meant to bring clarity and accessibility to royal finances, to demonstrate transparency to the public about how the royal family handles money. But observers noted the timing. Just weeks after these revelations about financial matters, and just as reports of abdication plans were emerging, the palace was making unprecedentedly clear statements about the financial health and stability of both the current and future monarchs. This could be seen as a confidence-building measure. The palace was saying, in effect, that the monarchy is financially robust and well managed under both King Charles and Prince William. If and when a transition occurs, the institution will be in capable hands, both spiritually and financially. The palace's statement about these tax disclosures is itself revealing. A spokesperson said, "While this is the first time a monarch has shared this personal tax information, you may recall it was similarly released by His Majesty when he was Prince of Wales. The decision to do so as sovereign has come at the express wish of the king himself as part of the adaptations carried across since accession." That language about adaptations carried across since accession suggests a monarchy actively thinking about how to evolve and modernize. It suggests an institution in transition, not static or resistant to change, but actively adapting to new circumstances and new expectations. Historically, abdication has been viewed as almost scandalous in British royal circles. King Edward VIII's abdication in 1936 was treated as a constitutional crisis. The establishment church was shocked. The political establishment was appalled. Edward had violated the sacred covenant between a monarch and the nation. He had put personal desire ahead of duty. But time has a way of changing perspectives. When Queen Margrethe II abdicated in 2023, it was celebrated as a wise and dignified decision. She was praised for her foresight and her consideration for the future of the Danish monarchy. The world watched the succession of her son with optimism and hope. The smooth transition demonstrated that abdication, far from being a constitutional failure, could actually be a sign of strength and institutional maturity. King Charles, who has always been intellectually engaged with questions of modern monarchy and institutional evolution, has clearly taken these lessons to heart. He has watched his cousin navigate the transition successfully. He has seen the Danish monarchy emerge stronger and more stable after the handover. And he has begun to ask himself whether the British monarchy might benefit from a similar approach. The reports of secret preparations suggest that he has not merely asked the question theoretically. He has begun to seriously contemplate the answer practically. Yet why keep this all secret? Why not simply announce the transition openly? The answer lies partly in constitutional protocol and partly in practical necessity. Announcing an abdication while still actively reigning creates complications. It could be seen as a lame duck situation in which the king's authority is undermined because everyone knows he's on the way out. It could create uncertainty in government and foreign relations. It could lead to constitutional questions about the proper exercise of power during a transition. Better, from a protocol standpoint, to have the plans fully prepared and the new reign ready to transition smoothly, and then announce the change when the moment is right. The palace maintains full functionality and full authority right up until the moment of transition, at which point the change occurs swiftly and decisively. Furthermore, there are personal and family considerations that call for discretion. A public announcement of abdication plans could be interpreted as an acknowledgement of diminished capacity or health concerns that the king might not wish to publicly broadcast. It could invite endless speculation and concern. It could damage the morale of the institution and the confidence of the public. By keeping the plans secret, by continuing to fulfill royal duties with apparent vigor, by maintaining the appearance of stability and continuity, the palace protects both the king's dignity and the public's confidence in the monarchy. When the transition finally occurs, it can be presented not as a desperate measure forced by circumstances, but as a deliberate and considered decision made by a wise and far-sighted monarch. The role that Prince William is expected to play in this transition is crucial. William is 52 years old, entering what should be the prime years of his capacity to serve. He is married to Catherine, the Princess of Wales, who has become genuinely popular with the British public and the Commonwealth. They have 3 children, ensuring that the line of succession is secure and the future of the monarchy is well established for generations to come. William brings an energy and a modern sensibility to the role that could invigorate the monarchy. He has demonstrated an interest in contemporary issues, from mental health awareness to environmental concerns. He represents a generational shift that could help the monarchy maintain its relevance in a rapidly changing world. Moreover, William has clearly been actively preparing for the top job. The garden party incident mentioned earlier was not accidental. William and Catherine are consciously building the networks and relationships that will define a future reign. They are identifying trusted advisors. They are cultivating relationships with key members of the extended royal family. They are thinking strategically about how to govern the monarchy in the modern age. When the transition occurs, William will not be stepping into the role unprepared. He will be assuming a position that he has been quietly training for, possibly for years. The question of timing remains uncertain, even to those close to the palace. Sources have indicated that there is no firm date currently in mind for the transition. This is prudent. Announcing a specific date would indeed create the lame duck situation mentioned earlier. It would start a countdown that could be destabilizing. Better to keep the exact timing flexible, contingent on circumstances, and the king's own sense of when the moment is right. Perhaps it will be in a matter of months. Perhaps it will be another year or 2. The point is that the machinery is in place, the plans are made, the document is prepared. When King Charles decides that the moment has come, the transition can occur quickly and smoothly. What does all of this mean for the future of the British monarchy? First, it suggests an institution that is capable of evolution and adaptation. For centuries, the monarchy operated under the assumption that a monarch reigned until death. Now, the possibility of a graceful transition, engineered while a king is still capable of making wise decisions, is becoming a realistic option. This represents an evolution in thinking about what monarchy means in the modern age. Second, it suggests a generation of leadership that is thinking about the long-term health of the institution, rather than merely clinging to power. King Charles, despite his age and his health challenges, is demonstrating the kind of far-sighted wisdom that ensures the monarchy will remain strong and relevant for generations to come. Third, it suggests that Prince William is genuinely being prepared for leadership. not as a distant possibility, but as an imminent reality. The careful cultivation of relationships, the building of advisory teams, the public positioning of key figures, all of this speaks to a transition that could occur sooner than most people realize. The secret document that King Charles has signed, or is preparing to sign, represents more than just a piece of paper. It represents a profound statement about what the monarchy is, what it means to serve as king, and how the institution will evolve in the coming decades. It represents the triumph of duty over personal ambition. It represents the recognition that sometimes the greatest gift a king can give to his nation is to step aside and allow the next generation to lead. It represents an acknowledgement that the health and vigor of a monarch matter, and that sacrifice and service sometimes mean knowing when to hand over the crown. The British public will eventually learn about this transition. Perhaps they will be told through an official announcement from Buckingham Palace. Perhaps they will see it reported in the media first, forcing a palace confirmation. Perhaps the transition will occur gradually, with the king stepping back from duties over a period of time before finally formalizing the change. However it happens, when it happens, the moment will be historic. It will be remembered as a turning point in the modern history of the British monarchy. It will be studied in constitutional law classes for generations to come. It will be the subject of countless books and documentaries and academic papers. But for now, behind the gilded gates of Buckingham Palace, behind firmly closed doors in the private chambers where the king conducts his most sensitive business matters, the preparations continue quietly and methodically. Plans are being refined and perfected. Rehearsals are being conducted to ensure every detail will proceed without error. Advisors are being carefully positioned in preparation for their future roles. Prince William is preparing to assume a role of tremendous significance that he may step into sooner than anyone outside the palace expects. The secret document sits somewhere in the palace, carefully secured, waiting for the moment when it will be needed, when King Charles decides that the time has come to hand over the greatest responsibility any individual can bear. The future of the British monarchy is being written not in public proclamations, but in private preparations, conducted behind palace walls and careful planning by experienced advisors, in the quiet wisdom of a king who knows that sometimes duty means knowing when to step aside. And when that moment finally comes, it will change the monarchy forever, and it will be remembered as one of the most significant moments in the history of British royal tradition.